For more than 100 years, the legend of an unusual person who lived in England at the end of the 20th century has been walking around the world. Such cases are known to modern doctors. There are similar people among those living now, but the existence of Edward Mordrake is questioned, since the circumstances of his life seem too incredible. Despite this, the image of a man with two faces, suffering from ugliness and forced to coexist with his second eye, is attractive to writers, artists, musicians, and therefore is actively exploited in art. Basic information about the life of this man was obtained from the book Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine, published in 1896. Its authors, two American physicians, George M. Gould and Walter L. Pyle, collected in this work all kinds of bizarre medical cases, including the story of Mordrake. This man was allegedly born into one of the most distinguished families in England in 1887. The child was born with an unusual deformity. On the back, on his head, he had another face, which, moreover, was alive. It could open its eyes, laugh and cry, but could never speak and could not eat. The young man, despite the anomaly, grew up handsome and gifted. All acquaintances spoke of him as a bright person. Friends said that he was gifted with God's favor, and he also played various musical instruments well. Those who knew Edward Mordrake say that he had a very handsome face, but only in front. Behind, on the back of his head, he had a different face, which seemed to exude evil and was very ugly. Despite the fact that the deformity clearly did not interfere with Edward physically, his mental health gradually began to deteriorate. They began to notice that the second person often expressed opposite emotions. It seemed to be maliciously happy when the young man was sad, and vice versa. She cried when he was in a good mood. At a time when the people around never heard a word uttered by a second person, Edward swore that he often woke up from the fact that the second person was whispering something. He claimed that his evil face whispered devilish words to him at night. According to legend, Edward Mordrake was the heir to an English peer, but this inheritance did not bring him consolation, since he had a terrible deformity, a second face on the back of his head. This devil twin never slept and constantly whispered some terrible things into his master's ear. Maddened by this demon companion, Mordrake committed suicide at the age of 23, writing in his suicide note that the demon's face should be destroyed before burial so that he would not continue to drive his master crazy even in the grave. This story, along with a photo of the two-faced Edward, circulates on the internet from time to time. But, in fact, the image being circulated is not a photograph of Mordrake himself, but merely a wax figure representing the artist's idea of what the man might look like. But did he really exist? According to some versions of Mordrake's story, this face belonged to a beautiful girl. This, however, is most likely only a poeticized myth. It is difficult to determine exactly what Mordrake suffered from, but most likely his second face is an example of a parasitic twin. Speaking about the source itself, the book, although written by doctors, does not seem to be a guarantee of authenticity. The fact is that about a year before its publication, the Boston Post published an article by science fiction writer Charles Lothan Hildreth entitled, "Wonders of Modern Science: Semi-Human Monsters Considered Children of the Devil." It was in it that the story of Edward Mordrake was first described, and it seems that the respected authors simply wrote it off from there, mistaking it for a scientific publication. Today, this story, along with a photo of two-faced Edward, goes viral on the internet from time to time. In fact, there is no real photo of Mordrake, but the replicated picture shows a wax figure created by artists based on a well-known story. Whether such a person actually existed is not clear. Despite the plausible story, researchers differ on this issue. Among the creatures described in the material are the Lincoln Fish Woman, a young girl whose legs, from the hips down, were covered with shiny scales and ended in a fish tail, a half-human half-crab, with hard tentacles at the ends of the arms and legs, a melon child, with a head which resembled a melon in size and color, with no tangible sense organs other than a vertical slit for the mouth. Mr. Stratton from the article had arms instead of legs and vice versa. The four-eyed cricklade had 2 pairs of eyes, and the Norfolk spider was a monster with 6 hairy articulated clawed legs and a human head. Medically speaking, Mordrake's case may be true. In medicine, there are 2 diseases that are similar in symptoms. The first is parasitic craniophagy, a type of fusion of Siamese twins, in which the head of a twin that does not have a body grows to the head of a normal twin. The second is diprosopis, craniofacial duplication, which is the result of abnormal protein activity when the face cells of one fetus are duplicated in the womb. In any case, these are extremely rare occurrences, and children born with such diseases are usually stillborn or do not live long after birth. At the end, the story of Edward Mordrake was described. It was from here that Gould and Pyle copied it, since it coincides verbatim with the text that later appeared in their book. Hildreth's material was presented in the newspaper as scientific, and therefore American doctors took what was described in it for real medical cases. Hildreth himself refers to the Royal Society, but he probably made it up. If he meant the Royal Society of London, then it should be possible to trace earlier references to the cases he describes. However, they are not mentioned anywhere before Hildreth's article. From this, it becomes clear that all this is the author's invention, everyone, including Edward Mordrake. This is further supported by the fact that Hildreth wrote many other stories that today would be called science fiction. Unfortunately, Hildreth did not live to see the success of his creation. He died in August 1896 at the age of 39, before the publication of Gould and Pyle's Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine. But he would no doubt be proud that his character captured the imagination of so many people and survived into the 21st century. Although this strange story about Mordrake is based on fiction, there are thousands of such cases, reminiscent of the rare disease of Edward Mordrake. And what is the saddest thing? The cause and method of treatment of these diseases remain unknown to scientists today. Consequently, those who suffer spend the rest of their lives in the hope that science will help them live a better life. We hope that their wishes will someday come true. This is where our video ends. Friends, I will be very grateful if you just like, write a comment and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for being with us.